Everybody, welcome back to the Point. Hope we all had a great weekend. We are live on a Monday with a lot to dive into from the NFL Week 3, including some interesting college football action and a lot of blowouts this weekend across multiple sports. We got a new beef. Notre Dame and Ohio State. Lou Holtz thought he was dead. No, he's still living. He's beefing with Ryan Day. Dan Lanning's beefing with Coach Prime. Sean Payton's beefing with every media person in all of the land because his team stinks. And they got embarrassed yesterday against the Finns. I mean, there's a lot going on. Mike Williams tore his ACL, which it's unfortunate, but you knew it was going to happen. We got some quarterback injuries. So we got lots to get into today. A lot of fight announcements for the UFC over the weekend. We'll talk about those tomorrow on the Tuesday show. So that's forthcoming. But where do you start today? So many different places you could go. There's Dallas being upset, which nobody saw coming, being a 12.5-point home favorite, which never happens. There's Green Bay coming back from a 17-point deficit against the undefeated New Orleans Saints. Detroit Lions dominating the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, we're a lot of different, Indianapolis beat Baltimore yesterday. But I want to start with the story that really took over the world of sports yesterday. And that's the Chicago Bears. Now, Taylor Swift was at the game, if you didn't see it. She may or may not be dating Travis Kelce. I really don't care. She writes good music-ish. Her concerts are overpriced. She's talented, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a Swiftie. I could give a shit about if they're dating or if they're going to have kids or any of that crap. But people that care go to town. So we'll move on. I threw her name in the title because why not? But what was so interesting to me about the game yesterday is, and I'm going to juxtapose two different situations. You have Kansas City hosting the Bears, and you have the Dallas Cowboys against the Arizona Cardinals. And the great team beat a bad team, and the great team that is put on a pedestal, that is talked about more, even though Kansas City's won the Super Bowl last year, the team that is put on the pedestal by the media and by fans because the Dallas Cowboys have to be talked about, they screwed the pooch yesterday while the Kansas City Chiefs took care of business. Now you could argue Arizona's a better football team than Chicago. Okay, sure. I won't fight you on that. Chicago Bears, however, had a quarterback that was taken in the first round, while the Cardinals have a quarterback that they acquired 2.5 weeks ago. So one would say that the Bears quarterback is better than the Cardinals. Cardinals traded off pieces. They want the first pick in the draft. There's a lot happening in Arizona. But what I find interesting is that the great team, the Kansas City Chiefs, beat a bad team and destroyed them. While the supposed great team, the Dallas Cowboys, did not. They lost on the road to a bad team as a 12.5-point favorite. That just can't happen. In that division, where the Commanders, they got smoked yesterday, and Sam Howell was a disaster, and I'm going to give the Bills some props here in a few minutes. I'm going to stop betting against them. And the second I stop betting against them, they'll lose a game because I know that's Josh Allen's MO. But the Commanders are 2-1. They're not a bad football team. Philly plays tonight, but they're 2-0, and they did something last year the Cowboys haven't done since 1995, and that was get to the Super Bowl. And the Giants are a mess, sure. But they're still the Giants. They're still in the mix, I guess. But the Commanders, my bigger point is the Commanders are 2-1. They're tied with you now. The Eagles, if they win tonight, are in first place at 3-0, undefeated after 3 weeks. You need to win these games. You only have so many gimmies on your schedule. In Arizona, I don't care who talks about it, is a gimme on your schedule. Because the Cowboys still have to play the Eagles twice. They got to play the Commanders twice. Look at some of the rest of their schedule. They got to go to San Francisco. That's a fun time. That's a fun game. Going to San Francisco on a Sunday night. Played the Chargers at home. Believe me, we'll talk about the Chargers on this program. I got a problem with their head coach, and he should be thanking whatever God he believes in that he's still employed after the shit he pulled yesterday. They got to play the Rams, not as easy an opponent anymore, as you might have thought after the preseason. The Cowboys. Eagles twice, to mention, they play them in week 9. What else they got? Giants, of course. Carolina, okay, there's your easy opponent, unless you throw Andy Dalton in there. So they don't got an easy schedule. And when you have Arizona, who want to lose, credit to Jonathan Gannon and credit to the Cardinals for playing really competitive football through 3 weeks, much to the chagrin of the organization. They might release a statement that they're happy that their team won and that they're in a great spot. And this is what we wanted all along, build a competitive team, blah, 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 lie. They want to lose. They want Caleb Williams or Bo Nix or Shedeur Sanders or anybody not named Kyler Murray as their future quarterback. But they beat the Cowboys yesterday. But this is Dallas. This is Dallas. They get talked about, and they're fantastic. And then they screw it up. They find a way to make a mistake. And the thing about pro sports that's different from real life. In real life, you can make a mistake. If you're an individual, you might get canceled for a bit. You might do something stupid, and people hate you for a period of time, and then you can get over it because people forget. But the thing about sports is that every season is documented. Every game is documented. Every game is talked about. And if you get to the end of a season and you don't win, it's viewed as a failure. Sports, you don't have the benefit of time. You don't have, time's your friend in real life when it comes to making a mistake. Morgan Wallen has made his fair share of mistakes. But people think he's a really talented musician. Not me, but people do. And people want to go see him in concert. They don't care that he that he probably only wants white people at his concerts, or that he's says the N-word a couple times on camera. People forget that, and they still go to his events, and life goes on, and he makes millions, and everybody's happy because they got to hear him sing. I don't know. That's something song, or ain't that something? And I've heard it about 80 times this summer, but I try to forget it. Ain't that some, or you get the point. The Cowboys are a lot like him. They're talked about a lot. They're propped up. People think they're better than than what they really are. But every year, it's a failure when they don't get to a Super Bowl. And yes, this is only week 3. But I look at the Cowboys and go, you couldn't stop the run yesterday. Cardinals ran for over 200 yards on you. They were more physical than the Cowboys. They were faster than the Cowboys. And they wanted the game more. Cowboys in the last 6 quarters have scored 1 touchdown. 6 red zone trips, 1 touchdown in the last 6 quarters for Dak Prescott. At the end of the Jets game, that's what I talked about. I said in the second half, they didn't play good football. They weren't prepared. They didn't play well. But, oh no, they won 30-10 against the Jets. The Jets stink. The Jets stink because Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps. And the Jets defense actually played pretty well in that second half, as I pointed out, because they didn't allow the Cowboys to score any damn touchdowns. But the Cowboys are struggling to find ways to punch it in the end zone to cap off drives. Not running the football in the red zone. Dak Prescott can't find CeeDee Lamb. He can't find Brandon Cooks. His plethora of tight ends. It's not working. Play design. Something isn't meshing. When you win 40-0 and then you win by 20 points, a combined 60-10 score, or 70-10 score in your first 2 games, everything's great. Everything's peachy. You own New York. And there's nothing wrong. Well, I think everybody expected the Cowboys to be punched in the mouth at some point. I just thought it'd be week 5 against the 49ers. I thought that'd be the game they lose, and then it goes, well, Cowboys aren't the best team in the NFC because the Niners are. You thought they'd crush Arizona, then play the New England Patriots, beat them, and then go, okay, everything's all right. But the Niners are better than us. But we're 4-1, and we're in good shape, and we feel great about our team. Yee! Well, maybe not so much. Looking at that, same time 5:25 starts. Both teams playing bad teams. Both great teams playing teams that you'd expect to be picking in the top 5 of the 2024 NFL Draft. And Kansas City did what Kansas City does. And that's win the game. Win the game. They didn't just win the game, they dominated the Chicago Bears, and the Bears would be the biggest story today, if not for the Broncos, which we'll get to. But the Kansas City offense, that looked pretty putrid through 2 weeks, looked pretty good yesterday. Mahomes didn't have any problems. Didn't have a whole lot of pressure in the pocket. He only had to play 2.5 quarters. 9 incompletions, 3 touchdown passes, ran for over 100 yards. Travis Kelce caught a touchdown, so everybody's happy so Fox could pan to Taylor Swift every fucking second. Jerick McKinnon caught 2 touchdowns. Pacheco ran for 1. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for 1. Not a bad little day. While Justin Fields didn't get 100 yards passing. Played the whole game. Didn't run 50 yards. Kansas City's fine. They know what they're doing. Andy Reid's too smart for it to fail. Their defense is one of the best in the entire NFL. I didn't expect it to be this good. Chris Jones is a flat-out beast. The Bears thought it was smart for most of the day to line up a rookie tackle and Darnell Wright just straight up against Chris Jones. I didn't think that was a perfect plan, but, that's just one man's opinion. Watching the Sunday night game, even the Steelers, whose offense ineptitude is something special, they said, let's chip Max Crosby. Let's throw a double team on him, a triple team every now and then. They even figured that one out, so credit to Matt Canada. But the Chiefs are fine. Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. Nothing's changed. The thing about the Bears, they don't have a plan. They aren't prepared. Justin Fields is playing a lot like Zach Wilson, and you never want to be in that discussion where a player is afraid to make a mistake. as an athlete, hearing other athletes talk, just listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of interviews. And even if you played sports growing up, you know this. You don't want to think when you're playing. You just act. If you overthink, you're going to fail. It's about just quick. Make a decision, go with it. And you live with that. And I think Justin Fields, there's times people are open down the field. And there were times yesterday where DJ Moore dropped an easy pass down the sideline. But they were turning the ball over. They weren't in good position. And they're such a disaster. Defensive coordinator resigned, and then Schefter pointed out yesterday, and I think it was on Sunday NFL Countdown, that it's because of inappropriate activity, whatever the hell that means. That's why he resigned. Justin Fields calling out his coaching early in the week. Then you go into Arrowhead and you play like that. Bears. The best thing that happened to the Bears yesterday, and the only good thing that happened to the Bears yesterday, was the fact that the Carolina Panthers lost too. Because the Bears own the Carolina Panthers 2024 first-round pick as well. Panthers traded up to get Yeah, I see the comment here. It's like moving meditation. You're not thinking, but your body's muscle memory is processing everything for you. That's a great way of pointing it out. But the best thing, the Panthers traded for Bryce Young with the Bears. So the Bears own the Panthers 2024 first round pick, and they have their own 2024 first round pick. So that's 2 first rounders. And Panthers and the Bears are both 0-3. So the way the season's going, the Bears, Panthers, those picks are both going to be in the top 5. And this Justin Fields' career as a Chicago Bears quarterback is on borrowed time. Because it's not working. Matt Eberflus is on borrowed time. But 2 turnovers in the first half. He didn't have 50 yards passing. Drops, penalties, lack of execution, taking sacks, being in bad situations. They're just an abysmal team. And I pointed this out to my friend yesterday who likes football but is more of a casual. The Bears have been bad almost the entirety of my life, and that's really not an overstatement. I was born in 98, and they made that Super Bowl in 06 with Rex Grossman as their quarterback. But that was an anomaly season. They got crushed by Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl. And they went through the Jay Cutler era, which was a disaster because he never really even liked football. And the Bears, when you are a team and people reference the 85 Bears, 1985 was a long time ago. Same thing with the Dolphins. Dolphins have been bad forever, but they reference, the 72 Dolphins. The 72 Dolphins were so good. Yeah, it was the last time they had a good team, other than when Dan Marino was there. But when if you think about this and you're rooting for a team, you think, the lineage of my team's really good. When they reference a team that's over 30 to 40 years ago, your team has been shit for 30 to 40 years because that's the last time you were relevant. That was the last time you won. Maple Leafs fans know this well. 1967. Great. Remember the 67 Maple Leafs? No. Everybody's near dead the last time they won. Last time they won anything. Thank God for the 94 for the New York Rangers. You can go through it. It's sad for a lot of Cubs. Cubs are the greatest example. 1908 to 2016. Whew. Sheesh. It's a long time without winning. Remember 1908? No, nobody does. Tim Kirchin wasn't even born in 1908 to tell you what it was like. But the Bears are just, they're not fun to watch. They're not well coached. They're not a good situation. Their quarterbacks make mistakes. They have drops. Their defense can't do a damn thing. They're not physical. It's just a mess. A mess. But all that being said, the Cowboys losing is a bigger deal than the Bears losing because nobody expected the Bears to win yesterday. Going into Arrowhead, 12.5-point dog? Of course not. Dallas, 12.5-point favorite going into Arizona. Everybody expected them to win, and they got their ass kicked, really. Dak Prescott throws his first interception of the year in the red zone. Then on NFL Films, Kaiser White telling him, "You suck," after he throws the interception. I mean, it's got some drama there. Now, the Bears play a team next weekend, and it'll be curious to see how many people tune into this game. But in week four, the Denver Broncos are heading to Chicago to play the Bears. Both teams are 0-3, and both teams are just a disaster. Here's what happened yesterday. The Denver Broncos went into Miami and gave up 70 points. If the Dolphins would have kicked a field goal, which they could have, they would have put up the most points in a game in NFL history. And it was the most yards in the common era for any one game for the Dolphins yesterday. 30 first downs, over 376 yards passing as a team. Because Mike White threw a deep ball. 350 rushing yards. Dolphins are not a great rushing team. Rookie running back out of Texas A&M ran 18 times for 203 yards, 2 tubs. Raheem Mostert, 13 for 82. It's 11 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry. Brooks, third-string running back, ran 9 times for 66. Mostert had 4 touchdowns on the day. Tyreek Hill, 9 for 157. It was an embarrassing loss. And the Broncos, who lost close games in week 1 and 2, get flat out embarrassed in Miami. Sean Payton's getting short with the media, so he's not going to fire his defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, after this defeat. Patrick Surtain, their best corner, almost had 100 yards when he was targeted, given up yesterday. So he had an awful game. They can't tackle. Thing is, Russell Wilson actually played pretty well yesterday, all things considered. He's been decent through 3 weeks. But the team around him is just in complete disarray. Their defense is ranked 32nd in the NFL. And Sean Payton wanted to make changes to the offense, and the defense has gone completely to shit. Their defense was ranked in the top 10 in every metric last year, but he brought in a new defensive coordinator to replace the guy they had because he was the new head coach. And they've regressed. So everything Sean Payton, okay, we're going to fix Russell Wilson, we're going to do all this. Okay, well, you're 0-3. Saying Nathaniel Hackett was one of the worst coaches. Well, does it get worse than what it was yesterday? Does it get worse than 70-20? Than Tua Tagovailoa looking like the MVP of the league? only having 3 incompletions the entire day, going 17 for 17 on his first 17 throws, averaging 11 yards per play on offense. How about Mike White? Backup quarterback comes into the game, throws a 67-yard bomb to Robbie Chosen Anderson, who just was elevated off the practice squad. Anybody who wanted the ball yesterday could have got a touchdown. 9 touchdowns for the Dolphins. They have the most explosive, they have the most scary offense in the entire NFL. Tua has time, and he has the weapons to throw it down the field with ease. Not to mention, they can run the football this year, and they're not afraid to do it. 350 rushing yards in one game. And running backs you've never really heard of, other than Raheem Mostert. He didn't lead them in carries yesterday. Look around, Chosen Anderson, Braxton Berrios. Their running backs are catching. Mostert had 7 catches. Achane had 4 catches. Then you have Tyreek Hill. They didn't have Jalen Waddle yesterday because he was in concussion protocol, and they dropped 70 on the Broncos. Talk about head coaching hires and making the right one. And for the longest time, the Dolphins were an organization that picked the wrong guy. They went with a guy with experience. They went with somebody that was everybody knew in the game, and it was a safe hire. Mike McDaniel wasn't a safe hire. He looked like a nerd. He looked like a guy that had never played football. Okay, he worked with Kyle Shanahan, sure. But what he's doing for the Dolphins, you think about this. His 2 seasons as head coach, they have had 2 consecutive 3-0 starts. When does that ever happen, Dolphins fans? 2 straight 3-0 starts to seasons. And it's crazy, but this talk at the start of the season was the Dolphins, you're afraid of Tua. And yet the play of Tua and the overall offense and how dynamic it is, the chatter has completely dissipated from, oh, he's going to get concussed, to, can you see these guys play? Look how creative they are. Do you see Tyreek Hill running that wheel route, catching the ball 25 yards down the field? Then he's scat backing for another 20? Chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, and now nobody seems to care that you had a quarterback that had 3 concussions last year. He's not getting hit. He's confident. He's playing like a different person. He's playing like a guy that has to prove a point. He's playing like a quarterback that is quarterbacking the best offense in the NFL, which he is. And credit to Mike McDaniel, he's never given up on Tua. He said, we have a right guy. He is the best quarterback for this offense. He's so accurate, which he is. And yes, it's 3 weeks. And you beat the Patriots, who weren't a playoff team last year. You did beat the Chargers, who were a playoff team. You beat the Broncos, who missed the playoffs. But you won your first 2 games on the road. And you beat the Broncos, a team with a lot of hype. And a desperate team to come in and play well after starting the season 0-2. You made a statement. And they're by far the funnest team to watch because they have so much speed and so much talent on the field that it's difficult to deal with. Vic Fangio has helped on the defensive end at stuffing the run, not allowing teams to do that like teams did to them last year, which was their Achilles heel. And you look at the Dolphins and you see what they're doing, and you look around and go, well, the Patriots stopped. The Patriots defensively with Bill Belichick, one of the best defensive minds in the history of the league. You give credit to him for limiting Tyreek to under 70 yards receiving. Because he had over 200 in week 1 and he had 157 yesterday. But Vance Joseph had no answers. The Denver Broncos are a disaster. It was a rough weekend for Colorado. So Colorado Buffaloes got smoked too. We'll talk about that. But the Broncos were worse. And this sets up two very different elements. In week 4, Dolphins heading to Buffalo to play the Bills and Bills Mafia in by far the best week 4 game on the slate. Since losing to the Jets, the Bills have been the best team offensively, you could argue, minus Miami. Josh Allen's looked great. And I wrote this down because I want to get this right. The Bills' defense have allowed, in their last 2 games, and this is quite staggering, 13 points. 13 points, and they forced 7 turnovers. The Bills' defense. And they have been without Von Miller, which is another crazy story about that. Five turnovers yesterday, and they had 2 against the Raiders. And Josh Allen only had 218 yards passing, but they're running the football more effectively. They did some good stuff yesterday, the Buffalo Bills, but their defense has been the biggest element to me. And offensively, Josh Allen is playing within the offense. He's playing within the structure. He's not taking chances. He's playing the game smart. And as always, if he continues to do that with this great defense, the Bills are a problem, no doubt about it. But you have the Bills, who look great, and then you have the Dolphins in week 4. 2 best teams in the AFC East set to square up. Bills winning 37-3 yesterday against the Washington football team. So that's the heavyweight matchup of week 4. On the other side of the coin, you have the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears, which oddly enough, that's a game I'm circling that I gotta have available. It'll be on one of my screens because I have to see this shit show of a game. Broncos, Bears. I mean, come on. 0-3, 0-3. Sean Payton on the hot seat. If you lose in Chicago against this Bears team, you are in real trouble. Big, big trouble. But you have the best game of the weekend, and you have the shit bowl between the Bears and the Broncos. And I love it. I do. Because it's awful. It is, that game. But it's also interesting. Here's something I tracked yesterday. I don't know if it's interesting. Some of you might find it interesting, but I did. Here are the first half points for some teams yesterday. Washington Commanders, 0. Jacksonville Jaguars, 0. Atlanta Falcons, 3. Green Bay Packers, 0. Tennessee Titans, 3. New York Jets, 3. Green Bay is the only team out of that group to win their game. But offenses around the league, whew, have been pretty putrid this season. Really putrid. You think it'd step up, it would get better. You could say, well, Jacksonville scored some points in the second half against Houston. Okay, scored 17 points. You lost by 20 at home. 0-2 at home this season. The Jags. CJ Stroud had a hell of a game. Tank Dell, rookie wide receiver, 5 for $145, first career NFL touchdown. They got a quarterback in Houston. He can read the offense. They're keeping him upright. They don't got a great team yet, but they got a good quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, little off target. The team making mistakes. He can't score touchdowns in the red zone. They give up a punt return for a touchdown to a fullback in the third quarter. This team has some bad mojo, and you put up 0 points in the first half at home against the Houston Texans. That's problems. Now Jacksonville has to go play 2 games in England back-to-back weeks with the international series about to kick off. Believe me, nobody wants to be in England for 2 weeks. Because if that week off, you'll probably have to go see the Queen no, wait, she's dead. But you'll probably have to go see the King or the Baldy and his wife and their kids and pretend to care. Ugh, poor Trevor Lawrence. Maybe if they win the game, you don't have to go through that punishment. But I know that's got to be on the itinerary. But wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Commanders, 0 in the first half, 3 points in the second. Not a good day for the Commanders, obviously. I just talked about the Bills. The Bills are a really good team, and I've been underestimating the Bills, to be completely transparent. I have been. I should have given them more respect. Their defense is healthy. It's really good. And Sam Howell didn't throw an interception the first 2 games of the season, was really accurate, and it just didn't. 4 interceptions yesterday. 1 was a pick 6, and he'll need to rebound. He'll need to find his game a little bit. And I still think the Commanders are a pretty good football team, but they got punched in the mouth early and often yesterday. Atlanta-Detroit was a game I circled, and I watched all of it. Here's the thing. You can go look and say Atlanta couldn't run the football that well yesterday, which is true. But I also watched the entire game, and early in the game, they didn't try to establish the run. They tried to establish Desmond Ridder, which is the weakness of the Atlanta Falcons. Their quarterback is adequate, and he's part of the team, but he is the weakest part of their team, I would argue, offensively. 21 for 38, 201 yards. He missed open throws. He missed screen passes. In the passing game, Bijan Robinson had 14 touches yesterday. He had 28 in week 2. We talked about this on Friday. While Jahmyr Gibbs didn't have as much as I'd like, but at least he carried the ball 17 times for 80 yards, which is a 4-yard average, which is pretty darn good. He had 1 catch for 2 yards. And Detroit didn't play good offensively either because Atlanta's defense was stout. They picked off Jared Goff, and they played hard the entire game. But one thing I will say is Aiden Hutchinson is getting better and better week by week. He's more and more of a force. He's forcing offensive lines need to figure out what to do with him. He's becoming that type of a pass rusher. But I think Atlanta's game plan was stupid. I think they lost the game early because they said, okay, Desmond, you're going to drop back. No play action. Detroit's not afraid of play action because we're not running the football, and you're going to miss receivers. Drake London finished the game with 2 catches for 31 yards and 1 catches for 28, and that was in the first quarter. Good to see Kyle Pitts. He had 5 catches. He finally had a sighting in this offense. But he threw the ball down the field and he missed receivers. He didn't use his skill position players enough. And I just thought the overall game plan for the Atlanta Falcons was bad. And they lost this game in part because of that. And when you go through the game and you get 3 first-half points and you finish the game with 6, your offense was not clicking. Tennessee, 3 points in the first half, and they finished the game with 3 points. Deshaun Watson was Deshaun. He threw the ball the wrong way yesterday, which was a scene and a half. But he played fairly well, all things considered, for Deshaun Watson. But the best thing about the Cleveland Browns is that defense. Myles Garrett had 3.5 sacks yesterday, and the dude's just a flat-out monster to deal with. Yes, they don't have Nick Chubb, probably the best running back in all of the NFL. But that defense under Jim Schwartz is going to be a problem for every team that they play. They are so fast. They swarm to the football. Zadarius Smith is a perfect foil for Myles Garrett. And either guy can get to the quarterback with ease. Not to mention Greg Newsome in the secondary alongside Denzel Ward. They can lock up wide receivers. And Ryan Tannehill looked great in week 2, was horrible in week 1, he was horrible in week 3. And as a team, the Tennessee Titans averaged 1 yard per carry yesterday. They didn't lose to the Steelers because of their defense. They lost to the Steelers because the offense made 2 mistakes and the defense scored 14 points. Pittsburgh Steelers defense scored 14 of the 26 points. That's what bailed them out. So, Cleveland is still a dangerous team. Absolutely. I wouldn't want to play them because I look at them and go, whew, that's no picnic. All kinds of talent on that club. And they still have Amari Cooper, who's a top 10, 15 receiver in the league. And they do have players on the outside that can make plays. And if Deshaun Watson can find his game even a little bit, this team's a nightmare. And they handled Tennessee easily yesterday. 3 points in the first half for the New York Jets. Jets lose 15-10 to the Patriots at home in a game that I think Jim Nantz and Tony Romo hated being at. And I believe that Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth will hate being at Chiefs-Jets this coming Sunday night on Sunday Night Football as well. The New York Jets were booing the offense in the first half. And it didn't get much better. Let's just face the fact, Zach Wilson is not a starting quarterback, and we've known this. It's obvious. Throughout the entirety of the game, on the sideline, he's getting into disputes with with Garrett Wilson and other wide receivers because he has zero confidence. He holds the ball too long, and he'll just simply miss throws. He completed just 50% of his passes yesterday, which is not good. They couldn't run the football because New England said, we know this is what you want to do. Brees Hall, 12 carries for 18 yards. Dalvin Cook, 8 carries for 18 yards. Garrett Wilson only had 5 catches. They eliminated every threat that the Jets have, and the Jets lost by 5 points. If you're the New York Jets, your season is not over yet. But you got the Chiefs coming up, and that's similar to the Bears game, where it's not going to go well. You may as well play Zach Wilson for that game. Start off 1-3, and when you get to 1-3, that's when you got to go, okay, where do we go from here? Is it about keeping Zach and trying to mentor him? Because then you go to Denver to play the Broncos, who we just talked about, who don't have a win yet. But I'm not a big Carson Wentz fan. I don't think he's some superb quarterback. But Carson Wentz is better than Zach Wilson. He just is. The Colts, Gardner Minshew won a game yesterday. He's better than Zach Wilson. I don't think they're going to trade him because the Colts are 2-1. And they might have something going here after they go to beat the Ravens in Baltimore. But there has to be a backup quarterback. There has to be a quarterback currently unemployed that you need to trade for because this team at least deserves a chance, and you don't have a chance with Zach Wilson. I don't care how many analysts say, well, if they do this with Zach, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen where he actually has confidence in himself to make the right play, which he does not. It's clear. The team is becoming more and more frustrated, and you don't want to punt on another season with this young core. 10 points for the entirety of the game. 20 points combined in the last 2 games simply is not cutting it. And yes, the Cowboys and the Patriots both have good defenses. I don't give it. The Chiefs have a damn good defense too. You get the Eagles in a couple weeks. They got a solid defense. So this Zach Wilson experiment, we believe in Zach, he's our quarterback, I don't understand it. You burned the bridge last year when you benched him for Mike White. It signaled, we don't trust you. And then you traded for Aaron Rodgers, so ruining the kid's confidence, which is already gone. What's the reasoning? Carson Wentz has reportedly reached out to the Jets wondering if they wanted to bring him in. I'd bring him in. Because the only thing he's going to cost you is money. Calling the Colts, calling the Falcons on Taylor Heineke potentially, calling... Now the big fish now that you look into, the Vikings. The Vikings are 0-3, and they lost a game yesterday that they should have won, but they're 0-3, and they're in disaster mode right now. They won the most one-score games in football last year. Their first 3 games this year, all one-score games, and they've lost them all. So a complete 180 for the Minnesota Vikings. They did not extend Kirk Cousins. They don't plan to franchise tag him. So if you're going to let him walk, if you're going to punt on the season, why not trade him to the New York Jets? All the Jets have to do is pay his salary. He will leave after the season, and Aaron Rodgers is your man next year at age 40. Kirk will go to another organization. The Vikings probably don't want to signal that they want to give up yet. And they aren't as bad as the Bears or the Broncos or the Carolina Panthers. But you have the same record as those teams. They play Carolina this weekend on the road. Then the Vikings play the Chiefs. And they might look at themselves in the mirror and go, our division isn't all that tough. Okay, yeah, the Bears stink. But Detroit's pretty good. They're 2-1. Green Bay, when they want to be, are pretty good. They're 2-1. They should be 3-0 if they didn't screw the pooch against the Falcons. So teams are catching up to you, and you're already losing games that you had penciled in as wins. So Kirk Cousins would be a trade, and it would signal the end of the season for the Vikings and their fans. But I truly believe the NFL should just accept the fact that Caleb Williams is a stud, and he's going to go first overall, and maybe the Vikings won't have a shot at him. And Justin Jefferson will be pissed. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but they're losing. Anyway, but guess what? Drake May's pretty good. He's right-handed. He threw a touchdown pass with his left hand on Saturday. Bo Nix is pretty good. He's been in college for 20 years, but he can still play. Really good college quarterback. I think he'll be decent in the NFL. Shador Sanders at Colorado can chuck the pill. He's a damn good quarterback. Michael Penix Jr., my guy, Washington Husky, team that should be ranked higher than they are in college football. AP poll getting it wrong every time. They're undefeated. They're putting up 50 a game. He's got the most touchdown passes in college football this year. That's right. My guy, ranked number 7, Washington behind Penn State, Florida State. Stupid. Anyway, Texas should be higher if you ask me. But you know you're losing Kirk Cousins because you would have signed him already, and you're 0-3 with him this year, and he's 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. Find the quarterback you like in college, start scouting them now, and say, guess what? Let's go get him because the future of this year is what? We fight back and beat the Panthers and beat the Bears twice, and maybe we split with the Bears and we split with the Vikings and we finish 7-10, 6-11. They still got to play the 49ers. They got to play the Chiefs. They got to play the Cowboys. They winning any of those 3 games? Unlikely. There's 6 losses. If you look at those 3, there's 6 there. Maybe they don't even split against the Lions. Maybe they lose both games. Kevin O'Connell's in his 2nd year. You make the playoffs in year 1, and he's probably feeling the pressure going, well, they'll fire me if we have a losing season. Maybe. I think they like him. 13 wins in year 1, but it's not going well right now. So the Jets, to me, it's pretty simple. Zach Wilson's not the answer. Why do you care about the feelings of a player that you don't want in your roster long term? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be mentoring him again next season? I don't even think so. If he plays out this entire year, that fan base and that the team itself is going to hate Zach Wilson so much because he can't play. And people are going to look around and go, this guy just doesn't hack it. Pardon the pun, with Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. He just can't do it. He's not an NFL quarterback. We can't have him on our roster because it's hurting our team fundamentally. And by the way, our backup quarterback next year is going to be Zach Wilson with a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off a ruptured Achilles. Does that sound like a good plan? That's good insurance. 40-year-old bodies normally can hold up longer than a 25-year-old. That's usually how science works. Maybe that's like Scientology, Tom Cruise level science. Maybe that's what he's pushing, but I don't know. Doesn't it sound... Maybe you have to call Fauci, get him out of retirement. Maybe he can guarantee that, or maybe Travis Kelce can as well with his with his Pfizer ad, but I don't think so. But the Jets, you're horrible to watch on offense. You have no confidence. That defense still is pretty good because now all of a sudden on Twitter, people think Mac Jones is playing really well. He had 15 fucking points yesterday. 15 points. And they almost lost on a Hail Mary to Zach Wilson and the Jets. He's making good decisions with the football. Okay. 15 points. 1-2. Only win against the Jets. That's all I need to know. Oy vey. Green Bay Packers, 0 points in the first half. They win their respective game 18-7. 18-17, pardon me. So they get shut out in the first half, then the defense shuts out New Orleans in the second. There was also a part in there where Derek Carr got slammed on the ground, suffered a shoulder injury. He's considered week to week. It might be Jameis Winston starting this coming weekend against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What I will say, I thought in the first half, Green Bay couldn't have played much worse. I was watching this season for some reason. Don't know why yet, but I'll figure it out. But this is what they were in the first half. Their special teams are awful. Awful. They give up a punt return for a touchdown. They took 9 penalties in the first half. They made this awful call on their first drive on 4th down. Tossing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and Jordan Love doesn't have his feet set. It's just a complete fucking disaster. So I go, okay, it's 17-0. They're going to get crushed. But then Derek Carr gets slammed to the ground by Rashawn Gary. And the game kind of shifts a little bit. And Jordan Love, who didn't play great, had some moments in the second half. They didn't have, this is another thing. They didn't have Christian Watson yesterday, again. They didn't have Jair Alexander, their top corner. They didn't have Elton Jenkins, their right tackle. They didn't have David Bakhtiari, their left tackle. All this, and they won. Jaden Reed, new wide receiver, had 63 yards receiving. Wicks, new wide receiver. I like a lot. He had a good game. Luke Musk, good in Tampa. Sam Laporta, my guy in Detroit, first career NFL touchdown yesterday, almost 100 yards receiving. The dude can flat out cut it up. Darnell Washington, he might not be getting tosses thrown to him in Pittsburgh, but he's blocking on that offensive line. Vegas is not using Michael Mayer for whatever the hell reason, but he caught a 2-point conversion pass at least last night, so he got on the board. But these tight ends that were good in college last year are good in the NFL. But Jordan Love, he didn't panic. He stayed calm, cool, and collective. And he got all the points he needed in the fourth quarter. All 18 points in the fourth quarter. He ran one in, then he found Romeo Doubs, and he also completed a 2-point conversion pass. I like Jordan Love. He's a good quarterback, and what I'll say about him, he hasn't had all the advantages early in the year of having just weapons, good offensive linemen, and he's overcome it. As I said, they screwed the pooch against Atlanta, and if they had a better game plan, they would have won. Through 3 weeks, there's been a lot of bad football. There's been a lot of bad coaching. And you look around and go, wow, some teams should have won these games, and you threw them away. Detroit should be 3-0, but they threw a game away against Seattle. Atlanta should be 1-2, but they benefited. Again, New Orleans yesterday. Yes, you lose a quarterback, but you have a 17-0 lead. You can't score a point in the second half. That's a problem. Still waiting for that offense to come together. You look at Dallas, Kansas City in week 1. The Jags, Baltimore, no receiver that had the ability to catch a pass in overtime yesterday for Lamar Jackson, and Gardner Minshew and the Colts find a way to win. So it's a lot of crazy stuff happening. And yet Jordan Love's not a rookie because he sat on the bench for 3 years. behind Aaron Rodgers. But you're starting to see him get better. You're starting to see him rebound. He had an awful fourth quarter against Atlanta. This was his first career start at Lambeau Field, and he had an awesome fourth quarter this time around. So you're starting to see that development. You're starting to see him look more confident in the pocket and make the big throws when he has to. This week, we get a good Thursday nighter, if you ask me. Lions at Packers on Thursday night, divisional game. Two teams that are 2-1 in a really important game early on in the season. And as I mentioned, you get Falcons Jaguars, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. Don't mind if I do. What else did I want to mention about the NFL yesterday? Chargers beat the Chargers beat the Vikings 28-24. Kirk Cousins throws an interception with 7 seconds left in a game that the Vikings should have won, as I touched on. Here's the thing. Brandon Staley, minute 45 left, 4th and 1, gets stuffed on his own 26. Could have punted the ball away. Don't know why he didn't. Decides to run the ball and get stuffed. And the only reason that the Chargers won the game was because Justin Herbert was phenomenal, because he was yesterday. How about this? 40 for 47, 405 yards, 3 tuds. Keenan Allen also threw a touchdown pass because they could not run the football. But they had themselves a day. But Brandon Staley wanted my prediction of him being fired to be true. He wanted that moment. He wanted to be fired this Monday to overshadow the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears and the amount of ineptitude that's going on in pro sports right now. He wanted that moment. But Justin Herbert bailed him out and keeps him employed as a head coach. And that's unfortunate. I mean, I don't root for failure, but I do root to be right. Justin Herbert, I hate you right now. Because I prefer to be right, But how about this day? Keenan Allen, 1 for 1, 49 yards passing and a touchdown. He also caught 18 balls for 215 yards yesterday in that win. Sheesh. Incredible day for him. If he's not Offensive Player of the Week, he'll be right there, maybe with Herbert. But Kirk Cousins, you look at his numbers, 32 for 50, 367, 3 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, he found KJ Osborne. That's always Kirk Cousins. He will have good stats. And as I say that, he leads the NFL in passing yards. He leads the NFL in pass touchdowns. He's third in the NFL in quarterback rating. And yet his team is 0-3. 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the season, a 108.2 QBR. I'm telling you, Jets, call Minnesota. Do it now. Why not? Other news and notes. As I mentioned, Mike Williams confirmed this morning has a torn ACL with the Chargers, their second best wide receiver. He's done for the season. Unfortunate. Jimmy Garoppolo's in concussion protocol. He got banged up late in that game. So we'll see if he's able to go in week 4. If not, then the Raiders will have to make a decision on whether it'll be veteran Brian Hoyer or rookie out of Purdue, Aiden O'Connell. I'm going with the rookie every day of the week, but that's just me. They are at the Chargers this coming Sunday. And Derek Carr has that shoulder injury. Right now it is a week-to-week thing, but they have not ruled him out to play Sunday yet against the Buccaneers. So there's still some question as to what is happening with him moving forward. Looking for anything on Twitter here about the NFL. Joe Namath, speaking on radio station in New York, says he would trade Zach Wilson. I've seen enough of Zach. Namath said Wilson's performance was disgusting, adding there were no positives. Yeah, hard to argue. Hard to argue. He's not wrong. So, that's it's on fire in Jets land right now. We got a double dose of Monday Night Football tonight. We got Philadelphia in town to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We also got the Rams in town to play the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, the Eagles are a 5.5-point favorite at Tampa Bay. I said this. I thought through 2 weeks, Baker Mayfield was the most impressive quarterback in the NFL. Philly's defense has not been impressive through 2 weeks, but they've had some time off. Their last game was a week ago Thursday. So they've had some time to sit on it, giving up over 30-plus points to the Vikings and allowing Mac Jones to throw 3 touchdown passes on them. I want to see that pass rush if they can get started tonight, if they can get to Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, this offense is coming together, and I still think that Tampa defense, they're full of vets, are pretty good. I like the Eagles a lot, as you know. I picked the Eagles to get back to the Super Bowl. But betting tonight, what I've seen from Jalen Hurts, what I've seen from Baker Mayfield, the Eagles can definitely find a way to win this game. But I'm taking the Bucs plus 5.5. That's the play tonight because the Bucs are good. It scares me, but I like the Bucs. In the other game, Rams at Bengals. Still not sure if Joe Burrow is going to play. It's a game-time decision. They're going to wait and see. He's dealing with a calf injury. Reportedly, it's getting better. And they're a 3-point home favorite against the Rams. Before the season, this is a lock bet, but Joe Burrow's been horrible through 2 weeks. He's banged up. Matthew Stafford's been fantastic. Puka Nakua's got the most catches in his first 2 games of any NFL career ever. Tutu Atwell's been solid as well. Even if Joe Burrow plays, I think the Rams can keep this close because Stafford's healthy and that offensive line has been solid. I like both underdogs tonight. I don't think both of them might lose their respective games. I actually think the Rams have a better chance of winning than the Bucs do. But I take the Bucs plus 5.5, and I take the Rams plus 3 tonight. A little same game parlay to increase the interest on tonight's respective games. But I think both games tonight are intriguing on Monday Night Football. There's no dud Carolina Panthers team here. So double dose of Monday Night Football coming your way. College football this weekend. I mean, the biggest story has to be the Colorado Buffaloes, who are the talk of the town. People either rooting for them or rooting against them. And they got punched in the mouth on Saturday, losing to Oregon 42-6. Shedeur Sanders being sacked 5 times. No Travis Hunter. And Bo Nix only having 5 incompletions, throwing 3 touchdowns. And Oregon almost running for 200 yards on Colorado. Two things. Oregon's really good. Really good. One of the best teams in the country. Good. And it was always going to be an uphill battle for Colorado to even keep this close. They were a 20-point underdog, and they did it against TCU in week 1, but this was a different level of an opponent. I told you Friday, I don't think it's smart to bet on Colorado to cover because I didn't think they would. 3-score game because Oregon is a lot better. What Coach Prime has done in 1 year is pretty incredible. He already has 3 wins. Colorado had 1 win all of last season. He's got people talking about 2 of his players for the Heisman Trophy. Oregon is one of the best programs in all of college football. They're consistently great. Dan Lanning was a great first-year head coach last year. It's continued. Bo Nix has been in college for a long time, and he knows what he's doing. They were physical, they were stronger, they were bigger than the Buffaloes. For Colorado to be a even greater program, to be mentioned with Oregon, to be with the USCs, they need to improve their defensive and offensive lines, and that's simply, they just don't have that. And you're not going to have it because you're in the middle of a season. This isn't the NFL or a pro sport where you can trade for it. You do it in January, in February, in March, in the transfer portal, and in recruiting. Next year will be the year for Colorado to take the step because he'll have that full year to get the pieces, to really have the luggage, and it will be Louis. But it'll be Louis Vuittons with really big people coming into that locker room. They got smoked. They got embarrassed. They got their ass kicked. No doubt about it. No debate. No anything. Maybe I didn't think it'd be 42-6, but I didn't think the game would be close. And I think if you're talking to people and they're like, oh, this game's going to be close and you're betting outright on Colorado, it's because people had no clue what the fuck they were talking about. Because it's 2 separate entities here. 2 very different teams, 2 organizations in different parts of their respective season, in their respective growth periods. I mean, Duke, a basketball school, is a better football program than Colorado is this year. Just are. The University of Miami, yes. UCLA, who didn't play great on Saturday in Utah, is a better program. That doesn't mean what Coach Prime is doing isn't incredible. If he can get this team to a bowl game, it will be a fantastic season for the Colorado Buffaloes. And I still think Shedeur Sanders is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I think every head coach wants to knock Deion off his pedestal, wants to embarrass him. And that's what Oregon did. And credit to them. Credit to them because they kicked some tail. But it's not a huge surprise. And I thought Deion handled it well after the game. He said, we got our ass kicked, and he didn't try to run from it. But one thing I don't think that should change, this shouldn't change the great story. This shouldn't change people liking Colorado. I don't understand. There's people on the line that have turned this into a race issue as to why everybody's supporting Deion Sanders. Normally, people would not be supporting him because he's black. That's normally how it would work. I think it's interesting because he's doing it his way, and I root for trailblazers. Doing the same thing over and over again and just, it's got to be this, you got to do this to get here, this step to get here. It's boring. It's okay. This is how we do things in life. You get here, you have to do this. Some people get through life easier. Some people don't go through the proverbial steps where you have to coach down here, Division III, then you're coaching Division II, then you're Division I, then you're coaching in the goddamn the pros. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. You get an opportunity and you take it. And quite frankly, Deion Sanders is a better recruiter than most of these coaches because he's recruiting black players. And he's black and he's had success and he's made money at the pro level. So he can relate better to these people because he went through it more than, say, Nick Saban or more than Kirby Smart or any of these coaches that are stuck in their old school ways, Dan Lanning. So this loss doesn't, oh, why was he on 60 Minutes? Or why, it's erroneous. But it's still a great story. Coach Prime is still a huge thing. They got USC this coming weekend. I haven't looked at the line yet. Let's do that now. Crazy. It's a game that's going to be a 1 o'clock start here in Atlantic time. 9 a.m. kickoff out west. 9 a.m. And yeah, USC is a 21.5 point favorite on the road going into that game on Saturday. So clearly, they don't believe in Colorado, and I think that's fair. I think that line's perfectly fair. The rest of the weekend, Florida State dodged another landmine. They defeat Clemson in overtime. Only the second win by FSU against Clemson in the last 10 years. Both games overtime wins. The thing is, Cade Klubnik probably played his best game as a starting quarterback in college. But they battled. Clemson missed a 31-yard field goal to go ahead with 1:55 to go, which was a chip shot. But that's college kickers for you. And just FSU, Keon Coleman, great wide receiver, made a clutch play over the shoulder catch in overtime. And FSU escapes with the win. They're still ranked inside the top 4, undefeated, with wins over a ranked Clemson team. And they still got some tough games that they still got to play Miami later in the year, but they look pretty good. Nick Saban, Alabama, beat Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss 24-10. I got to tell you, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart commits 2 turnovers. Alabama did not allow them to run the football. And that Alabama defense stepped up, to their credit. McLennan, their running back for Alabama, played hard. And Jalen Milroe made some mistakes. He has some limitations, certainly. But he can throw a deep ball. He struggles in the intermediate. But he played good enough for them to win. And that's about all good you could say. But Alabama gets the win at home. Utah beats UCLA. They still have a night Cam Rising the entire year, but they're 4-0. Kansas, 4-0 for the second straight year. They're ranked, beating undefeated BYU in a great game. Now they get Texas this weekend. 2 4-0 teams in the Big 12. That's a fun one. Louisville crushes Boston College. They're 4-0 quietly, not ranked. Let's see other results. You had Washington State beat Oregon State. Washington State, that was my pick of the weekend. They are good. They were a home underdog. Bet on them. How about Cam Ward? 28 for 34, 404, 4 touchdowns in this game. They can score points. So can the Beavers, but they outstruck them. Washington State, another Pac-12 team. Pac-12 has 4 teams inside the top 10. I think they got 8 teams inside the top 25. It's pretty incredible what they're doing this year. Ohio State, Notre Dame. This was a crazy game. Defensive battle throughout. In the second half, Notre Dame possessed the ball nearly the entire second half because they just kept running the football. Sam Hartman didn't have a great game, didn't have a lot of time to throw. But Ohio State gets the ball back late in the game, and they go down the field, and it's 4th and 1 second left. And what do? They give it to Trainum right down the middle. He squeaks over, and Ohio State beats Notre Dame 17-14. Huge win on the road, gets them inside the top 4. Neither offense looked great. Neither quarterback played particularly well. Marvin Harrison Jr. only had 3 catches. But a huge win in South Bend. Ryan Day was fired up, comes out looking like the heel. Got no problem with that. Calls out Lou Holtz. It's kind of funny because he looks everybody says he looks weak after doing it. I liked it myself. USC, I talked about Washington. They look fantastic. So you had it was a great weekend of college football. A great slate. Looking ahead to this weekend, you got some good games. Undefeated Louisville, as I talked about, they got North Carolina State Friday night. Utah at Oregon State. Oof. Utah undefeated, but they're banged up, and you go to play the Beavers in one of the toughest environments to play in all of college football. USC Colorado, number 22 Florida against undefeated Kentucky. Interesting game. Clemson Syracuse. Normally you wouldn't think this is that interesting, but Clemson's 2-2. Worst start that they've had in a long time. Syracuse is undefeated. They got their problems. Their quarterback is not a great thrower, but they haven't lost yet. So credit to them. Georgia, Auburn, fun rivalry. Not a bad game. Michigan, Nebraska. You have Kansas and Texas, as I talked about. Kansas, damn good team. What else do we got this coming weekend? LSU at Ole Miss. 2 teams ranked inside the top 25. You'll take that. Oregon at Stanford. Notre Dame at Duke is an interesting game. Duke still undefeated. Duke having win against Clemson. Notre Dame having a tough loss. South Carolina at Tennessee. It's not a loaded weekend, but you got some good games. It's hard to top what just happened this past Saturday, to be completely transparent. But it's mixed it up a little bit. You have some teams that are in the mix. And the best thing about this college football season, if you ask me, there's no great team. Georgia isn't above the rest. Ohio State certainly is not. Texas is not. They have their flaws. FSU wins close games, but do I trust them to stay undefeated the whole year? I do not. Looking at the rankings here, Penn State's 4-0. They've had their problems this year. Michigan is undefeated, but again, they haven't played a tough opponent yet, and offensively, they're showing some warts. If you look at Washington, USC, and Oregon, I think those 3 teams have looked as good as any team in the country. The problem with those 3 is they play each other, and they're going to cannibalize each other, and they probably won't get in. Alabama certainly has not looked great. They've had their problems. LSU, that bad loss to FSU. They nearly lost to Arkansas Saturday night. Oklahoma, they struggled against Cincinnati. That defense, North Carolina, Washington State's look great. The University of Miami's look great, beating Texas A&M. So there's a lot of teams that could be in the mix, that could still make a move. Fresno State, seeing them at 25, that made me smile. They've been an underrated, good program for a long time, and they're getting appreciated for once in the top 25. Also this weekend, the Blue Jays took 2 of 3 against the Rays. The Royals swept the Astros. The Rangers swept the Mariners. Blue Jays are going to make the playoffs. We've known this. Talked about this. They have a 2-game lead over the Houston in the AL wildcard. So it looks like Might see Toronto head back to the Trop to play the Rays in the wild card round. What else do we got? In the National League, Arizona and the Cubs are tied for the second wild card position. The Marlins trail them by 1 game. So they're still very much in the mix. This week, the Marlins, they get some good series. They get to play the Mets, then they play the Pirates. 2 teams not making the playoffs. The Diamondbacks are at the White Sox, and then they play the Astros. And the Cubs are at the... They're playing the Braves for 3 games. You could say the Braves have nothing to play for, but yet they're still pretty good even with nothing to play for. And then the Cubs finish their season at Milwaukee. So it looks tough position for the Cubs. Cincinnati's 2.5 back. They're still sort of in the mix. They go to play the Guardians for a couple. And then they finish against the St. Louis Cardinals. So still some races. Last full week of baseball before the playoffs get underway. Next week, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. We're also going to talk a lot of MMA on the show tomorrow. A lot of fights announced, an interesting weekend. We got a big boxing event this weekend featuring Canelo Alvarez. So lots happening in combat sports, lots happening in the world of sports at large. NHL preseason is back. Calgary Flames put up a 10-burger on the Vancouver Canucks last night. Quietly, if you missed it. So NHL preseason is back. It's a good time to be alive. All right. Well, that's today's show. Be back tomorrow to recap the 2 games this evening and a whole lot more in the world of sports. So take care, enjoy the games. See you tomorrow here on To The Point.